On the 7th of May 2013, the Daily Monitor, Uganda's leading independent newspaper, published a story titled "Probe Assassination Claims," says General David Tinyefunza. In his letter, General David Sejjusa talked of a plan by President Museveni and a small circle of his close family to install his son, the then Brigadier Muhoozi Kainerugaba, to succeed him as president. At the time, Brigadier Muhoozi was the head of the Special Forces Command, an auxiliary force in charge of protecting Museveni and his close family. General David Sejjusa coined the term Muhoozi Project to describe this plot. Things became dicey when he asked the Internal Security Organization Director, General Ronald Balya, to investigate claims that there was a plot to assassinate senior army and government officials deemed opposed to the Muhoozi Project. Following the publication of the letter, an 11-day siege took place at the Daily Monitor offices, and their premises declared a crime scene, demanding the production of the letter as well as to know its source. When General Sejjusa dropped this bombshell, the country was in shock, not that they were not expecting it, but because it came from a serving military general who was part of the military high command, and also the allegation that several military and government officers opposed to the project will be eliminated really made things very, very interesting. Until then, it was always rumored that Museveni was planning to bring his son. Well, the signs were even clear, given that Muhoozi was fast-tracked within the military with promotions as well as other military courses, benefits that he got at the expenses of other military officers. Since then, whenever a military officer in the country or a government official in the country dies, it is always pegged to the Muhoozi Project and Sejjusa's letter, claiming that they are clearing way for General Muhoozi. But how exactly do father and son plan to pull this off? And what are the odds of its success? First, replacing a person who has been in power for over 36 years with a fellow family member isn't easy business in Africa, given that majority of African countries are not monarchies. But some have succeeded where others have failed, and others have failed where some have succeeded. Here is why. Let's look across the continent where it has happened before. In Togo, when this guy passed away in 2005, by the way, this is Ginsimbe Eyadema, according to the Togolese constitution, after the president's death, the president of the National Assembly had to become the acting president. However, at the time of Eyadema's death, the National Assembly president, Famba Kwatala Nachaba, was out of the country. So, the military, together with Fole Eyadema, the son to Ginsimbe, dismissed Nachaba and elected Fole in his place, legalizing his succession, which took place on the 6th of February 2005, although the African Union recognized it as a coup. Many believed that Nachaba didn't even want to come back to Togo due to fears of assassination by Ginsimbe's clan. The members of Ginsimbe's party did not even bother challenging the army's choice. The parliament also scrapped a constitutional requirement that required elections to be held within 60 days of the president's death, enabling the young Ginsimbe to rule until the expiration of his father's term in 2008. In Gabon, Ali Odimba Bongo took over when his dad, Omar Bongo, died at a Spanish hospital on the 8th of June 2009. Under their constitution, the Senate president, Rose Francine Rogombe, a Bongo ally in the ruling party, took over as the interim leader and organized elections within 45 days in which Bongo participated and won, of course with a lot of rigging and support from the military. The other is Joseph Kabila, who was handpicked by the presidential inner circle after the assassination of his father, Laurent Desire Kabila, in 2001. In April 2021, Idriss Deby, the president of Chad, was killed while commanding forces fighting on the front against the FARC rebels. Upon his death, the Chadian parliament and the government were both dissolved, and a transitional military council was formed with his son, Mahamad Deby Itno, also known as Kaka, as chairman. In addition, the constitution of Chad was suspended and replaced with a new charter. For good measure, I will also throw in Teodoro Obiang, who executed his uncle Francisco Macias Ngema in August 1979 by firing squad to become Equatorial Guinea's second president and the second longest-serving ruler in Africa, after Paul Biya of Cameroon. Notice here, I did not mention people like Uhuru Kenyatta or Celeste Kama of Botswana because these were not immediate replacements, but rather they served their nations after time had passed. I think those who failed should also be useful to this video too. First is Gaddafi. He wanted his son Saif al-Islam to replace him. but it did not happen. In fact, Saif ended up in prison. Then Hosni Mubarak of Egypt groomed his youngest son, Gamal Mubarak, to take over. Then the Arab Spring happened, which left father and son ending up in prison. Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe was a wee bit different. He wanted his wife, Grace Mugabe, to take over when he died. Well, Mnangagwa, with the support of the military, pounced and stopped him. Omar el-Bashir never had children. Konde was deposed before it could even happen. Charles Taylor's son, Charles MacArthur Emmanuel, also known as Chucky Taylor, the former leader of the Demon Forces, is now in an American jail serving for 97 years. His father had thought that one day he will take over Liberia. The point is, at some point, all African strongmen have groomed their children or close family members to take over after them because they are the only ones they can trust. However, the odds are tight. Everything has to be according to plan, and the stars have to align with no room for error. Back to Muhoozi. If Museveni is to pull this off, this is what is likely to happen. Uganda will go to the polls in 2026. Campaigns for Muhoozi 2026 are now in full gear, meaning that they want him to get on the ballot to contest for presidency. Now, this implies that he will have to resign from the army to participate as per the constitution. Museveni has always rammed through elections by bribery, rigging, ballot stuffing, and intimidation. The system in place will be the same, just with a different candidate. But wait, for 36 years now, Museveni and his NRM popularity has tanked. Knowing that, why bother to take him through a popular contest, yet with a touch of a button, you can amend the constitution? What I mean here is that there are talks in the country about changing the constitution once again on how we elect the president. It goes that they want the president to be elected through parliament by the party with majority members. Well, don't take this serious, but don't say I did not tell you. What this means is that he resigns, his father carves out a constituency for him, as he did with the mom, joins the parliament, and voila. But wait a minute again. What happens if the president is incapacitated or if he dies in office? Well, the constitution says that the vice president takes over and organizes the election in 60 days. Look, if Museveni is preparing his son for the presidency, what makes people think that the vice president won't be forced to resign in favor of General Muhoozi or just dissolve everything like in Mali and Togo? It's always been a tactic for General Museveni to elect a weak vice president who is reduced to the role of a chief mourner at funerals and just keeping up an appearance. The only time they are relevant is when the president dies or if he is incapacitated. I remember in 2020 when Museveni was faced with a situation where, in case he was to postpone the January 2021 elections, he had to resign from the office for the speaker to take over. The general backtracked in his earlier position concerning COVID that if it had become too much, he would postpone the elections. What this meant is that he never wanted to give power to a person who was not coming from his own family or a close family member. Whenever we have elections, the president is required to resign from the office and hand over the tools of government as a sign of impartiality and fairness. The guy always takes part in elections as a candidate at the same time as the president, using the entire state machinery and resources to his benefit. That's the nature of our politics. So you need a weak vice president for two reasons. One, to take over as president and have Muhoozi run the military, where the power will shift from the hands of the presidency to the military, which will be in command of Muhoozi. With this, the military will be owning the country officially and not the other way around. And here a small group of generals within the SFC will be choosing who becomes president and who doesn't. A good example of such scenarios is in Pakistan, Mali, Egypt, Zimbabwe, among other countries, as well as Burma. Second, you need a vice president who will follow orders easily in the event that the president is dead or incapacitated. In this case, the NRM chooses Muhoozi as the flag bearer, then the VP calls for an election when it suits and feels they are ready that Muhoozi can win by all means necessary, which can't be different from his father's style. Or simply in an African coup fashion, the VP just resigns in favor of Muhoozi. The role of the military in all this is very essential, and I mean very, very essential. The truth here is that Muhoozi has a right, like any other Ugandan, to participate in any democratic process of the country while following the law. And by the law, I mean resigning from the military first. But that will not happen, since he is the only family member in the entire military that is directly related to Museveni as a son. He will likely not resign on his father's advice in order to neutralize any threats that would come from there. And also, in true Malian fashion, the military will be useful to dissolve the government and the constitution and create the same sort of transitional council that will last for 5 years or more. The point is that Museveni and Son won't be different from other African leaders. If you are looking for an answer, look elsewhere on the continent where it has happened. So, can this be stopped? Well, I guess yes and no. It all depends on a number of factors. By the way, the only people who think that Muhoozi becoming president is easy, it might be you and me. Father and son know how hard this is, and the signs are clear. So why I think that it is hard, well, it will be a video for another day. You see, some Ugandans look at Muhoozi as a spoiled brat. His actions are the mirror image of his father. People worry that if he takes power, he will definitely take over where his papa left off. As they say, the apple doesn't fall far away from the tree. If Muhoozi had approached this entire thing as a reformer and a champion of human rights, a critic of his father's corruption tendencies, among others, the conversation would be very different today. In Libya, Saif al-Islam did exactly this and managed to pull it off. That's why, among Gaddafi's sons, he's the only one that was captured and no finger was laid on him. He was later charged and detained, but later, charges were dropped and released from prison. Recently, he was even running for office. Trust me, he is popular. This was all because Saif would openly criticize his dad, which got him a good genuine following in the country. Muhoozi has his work really cut out for him. But between me and you, the safest and less riskiest chance is to go through an election in 2030 or 2036 or somewhere in 2040, given his unpopularity. That will take time to build back. That is, if it can even be built back. The people just need a break from the entire Muhoozi family, but it looks like the entire family isn't willing to give people a break. Suppose the transition from Museveni to Muhoozi happens, their dynastic rule will continue, but on life support.